Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Tarek O'Dali from Business Review, and I will be your host. It is our pleasure to have Italtel and Current Analysis with us today, who will be discussing best practices in network provider business transformation. Today's guest speakers are Brian Washburn, Service Director for Global Business Network and IT Services at Current Analysis, and Amer Doha, Head of Professional Services, Strategy and Marketing at Italtel. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar platform, On24. You'll notice that this webinar is browser-based, so if you disconnect for any reason, please just click on the link that you received via email to rejoin the session. In order to ask questions, you can send them in at any time via the questions widget. Just type them into the box at the top left-hand corner of your screen and click Submit. We will allocate around 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the session to address any questions or thoughts that you may have. If you click on the survey widget, there are a few questions in there for you to answer in order to provide feedback. You can do this during or immediately after the webinar. Please use the yellow Help widget if you require any assistance, and you can move, resize, and maximize any of the windows in front of you to get a better view of the slides. But now, please allow me to welcome Brian.
Thank you so much, Tarek. I'll be speaking. Hello, this is Brian. I'm with Current Analysis, and I'll be speaking for the first half of the presentation today on business transformation on network providers. I'll be looking at nailing up some of the challenges that network operators face and putting kind of a context to all of the disruption and the transformative elements that we're observing out there by network operators. And then Mr. Amer Doha will be, from Italtel, will be presenting the second half of this presentation, bringing Italtel's perspectives and expertise and insights to this presentation. So the various issues faced by network operators, such as wireline PSTN facilities that they're seeing are in an organized retreat currently. Some of the complicating factors we're seeing as the public telephone network is considered to go to an all-IP conversion. Some additional complexities that operators are facing in their wireless environments. And then finally, the overall trends we're seeing from operators in virtualizing their network functions and packetizing their networks. So I figured the best place to start to set a context for what's happening out there in the industry is this series of charts. And on the left-hand side, what we're looking at are the line losses at some of the most stable, that is the least line-losing markets in Western Europe. On the right-hand side, we're seeing some of the more extreme economies of Western Europe where line losses we anticipate will accelerate rapidly. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we are looking at line losses happening that are between 5 and 10% annually and gradually accelerating. These are typically expected to be in Western Europe's smaller economies, such as Ireland and Greece. Those on the right-hand side, where we're seeing line losses that are going to be as high as 20% and higher year over year, are some of the largest economies or the more advanced economies in the Nordics and, say, Germany. And the reason that these things are happening, of course, are through a series of wireless displacement, competition from cable telephony, over-the-top voice over IP, various collaboration and chat and social applications. All of these are taking chunks out of the traditional telephone network. To put a context into what this means for operators, I've provided here some examples of what's happening in U.S. markets. And this is just within the past 6 months, some of the observations of network disclosures by the major operators. They've, in the past 6 months, had to or been shutting down more than a dozen central office switches. They've swapped well over a dozen traditional central office switches with soft switch replacements and completely shuttered one CO. There's also been a variety of fiber upgrades, some discontinuation of new copper builds, and an overall consolidation of signaling system 7 signal transfer points. All of this is being done because of the ongoing line losses that are decreasing the revenues from traditional voice. The unfortunate reality is that all of these facilities that are out there from the old public telephone network have got a specific sunk cost, and that sunk cost can only be reduced by reducing the number of facilities and by deactivating some of the switches as the lines are being gradually reduced in the market. Fortunately, what this means is that there's a lot of expertise out there when it comes to looking to move from the public telephone network to soft switch architectures. And some of these trends have actually been started as far as 10 years ago, where we saw operators first dabbling in these possible conversions. And what we've learned from that is that the class features, the traditional central office calling features, can be fairly easily replicated by soft switches. It becomes a little bit more complicated when we look at more advanced business features, such as hunt groups and voice VPNs, but they can support those, and also the service features like service announcement and service testing for the field techs. On the left-hand side, some of the kind of general additional features that are not really specific to the soft switch but also are necessary are things like legal compliance and privacy compliance, support for emergency dialing and operator assist. These are things that where soft switches have been fairly well established that they're capable of handling these. There's some tricky points, though, in displacing, say, one type of traditional CO switch with a new type of soft switch, where the features are not necessarily always implemented exactly the same, which means a lot of care in making sure to notify customers, especially if those customers are businesses and they're accustomed to having voicemail or hunt groups work one particular way, and suddenly that expected way of operation changes on them. And where things do get more complicated is in all of the systems and processes that surround the voice architecture. So it's one thing to take the existing central office switch and take it out and replace it with a soft switch infrastructure. However, there are many, many touch points in that telephone network that might be somehow directly or indirectly affected by that swap out. We've got the ordering and provisioning systems, customer support interfaces. There are many different management systems and devices that, or applications that pull information from the telephone network about its about fault and performance. There are a series of other OSS functions, inventory, rating and billing, of course, and then sort of a series of other applications. And just to complicate matters further, not only are all of these systems and processes potentially complicated, but they're also often interdependent. For instance, let's say the customer support interfaces need not just to see into what's going on the management side, they need to see what's happening with rating and billing and be able to have two-way communications between all of these different systems. So it's one thing to take out a central office switch and put in a soft switch instead, but to make sure that all of those interfaces are honored and carried forward can be quite complex and fairly time-consuming to make sure that that easy drop-in of the switch is then supported by all of the surrounding sophistication in the network. And for this next slide, I wanted to call out one specific aspect just to show how complex this, what might seem as an easy challenge on the face of it, can potentially be, and how transformative it can be. Here is an example of emergency response with emergency dialing and how the process works. On the left-hand side is the more traditional emergency response, where someone calls in for an emergency. The call hits the local telephone central office. From there, it's referred, because of the abbreviated dialing, to a regional lookup The database then redirects that call to a regional emergency response, which then takes the call, figures out the nature of what's happening, and then sends the call to a local dispatch, which then will take it to the police, ambulance, fire, or whatever other action needs to be taken. When you move that into an IP world, into this next generation architecture, then what you end up with is a geographic independence, as an IP address has no known physical address. So on one level, the challenge becomes that there are many different paths in the network to many different resources. Your emergency response database that takes the call and looks it up could be anywhere, which is, on the bright side, it can be distributed across multiple resources in the network, and it can take many paths. The downside is that there isn't a clear way of telling exactly where the client is right away, so there needs to be a lot of cross-mapping. Again, the benefit is that it takes what used to be a voice-centric way of looking at emergency response, and it now can allow video and images and multimedia and whatever other types of media might be supported, text messaging and so forth. Those then can become IP links that go directly to the regional emergency response, so that that response center could accept live video, for instance, and forward that to the local dispatch center, which again, if you have an entire end-to-end IP-based setup, would be possible to send the media applications directly to the fire, ambulance, police, whatever emergency response is dispatched. So again, a similar process of emergency response, but the underlying the underlying approach and the technology that enables it becomes fundamentally transformed and needs to be thought about very differently. For this next slide, I wanted to just dip my toe into what's happening while all of this is happening in the wireline network in wireless infrastructure. Here we've seen already the traditional 2G and 3G networks, which started as very voice-centric, then become packet-enabled, and now with 4G we've seen widespread deployment of what we call the evolved packet core. That evolved packet core is then tied to an internet media subsystem, and an IP media subsystem, and what that means is that there's the possibility for voice over data with quality of service like VoLTE or voice over LTE. This is all fairly involved and an increasing level of complexity over the more traditional cellular network, and it takes some time and attention for the operator to perform these upgrades. But in the meanwhile, where the operator really wants to sit is in the applications that make a lot of revenue. So there's the possibility to build mobile applications that take in pieces of, say, analytics and cloud storage and data processing, and to sell professional and advisory services, to build, say, location-based marketing or location-based fleet management. And so while the operator is trying to get into this much higher level of more revenues, more value, there is a lot of distraction needed just to make sure that all of the underlying infrastructure is being evolved into this next generation data fabric that can carry all of this wireless capability. So to switch tracks back again for a moment, looking at the world of traditional TDM telephony moving to all IP, here's just a quick list of kind of some of the major initiatives that have been publicly announced to date. As you see in this list, the operators of Western Europe and the States are very well represented. These are commitments from, say, Deutsche Telekom, Telekom Austria, Orange, KPN, Swisscom, BT, Telefonica, Telecom Italia, AT&T, Verizon. All of them have committed either to, in some cases, specific timeframes to move from their traditional TDM voice to fully convert to an all-IP network, or at least to make a commitment to say, we know that the existing TDM network is sunsetting, we need to make this conversion, and we expect that at some point we will reach that goal. And then finally, while all of these transformative measures are happening, there's a final disruptive change that's in the operator networks taking place today, and that is the broad umbrella of virtualization. We think of network function virtualization as being maybe customer-facing enterprise firewall services that can now be put into the cloud. But the reality is much broader and a much bigger operational change inside many network providers, where they're taking, say, their operation support systems and their internal functions, and they're virtualizing those. They're taking their wireless infrastructure and they're abstracting and centralizing that capability in the cloud. They're taking their wireline traditional central offices, as we've already mentioned, moving them to soft switches, and in cases centralizing that functionality. The reason for this is because it becomes easier to manage in a cloud environment. It becomes a simpler overall architecture. By centralizing it, you're also able to run the overall infrastructure more efficiently. So that entire combination ends up being a major operational streamlining benefit to the providers that are taking on these challenges. And here we see on the top kind of some of the operators and what they've done. There's many folks who have deployed virtual evolved packet cores to date. We've seen Telefonica with Unica taking on a bunch of different types of virtualization functions in the network and using those then to kind of syndicate them from more central locations throughout to provide advanced functions to places where a geographic deployment may not make sense. And of course, a bunch of kind of stacks of the wireline network that are put in centralized locations. So what does this mean overall? Well, there's a lot of opportunity for operators to transform their business, to turn it into something more operationally efficient, and operators in the coming years will look very different from what we have seen them be, say, 10 or even 5 years ago. But it isn't exactly, in some ways, that is an easy conversion in that soft switches going from a TDM world into all IP are a proven quantity. However, the surrounding systems and processes mean that there's a fairly complex environment in which that otherwise straightforward replacement can become somewhat more complex and time-consuming. Also, it means that there's been an increasingly applications-centric wireless infrastructure that's been taking the capabilities where folks have wanted to focus on the higher level digital transformation types of applications, and instead might be distracted by the lower end wireless functions. And then, of course, there's the entire scope of widespread network function virtualization. What it really means overall is that there are a lot of things in which network providers have their attention, have demanded their attention, and as they turn their attention to all of these different places where they need to make changes, the one thing that they don't really have is a surplus of time and resources to be able to take on all of these things simultaneously. And with that, after nailing up kind of the context of the operating environments that network providers find themselves in, I'd like to turn things over to Mr. Amer Doha. Amer?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Brian, for your presentation. On the rest of this webinar, I'll take you through a presentation about Italtel, who is Italtel, and the experience and the methodology of Italtel on concerning the network transformation and the projects conducted by Italtel. Well, Italtel is an Italian company acts as a system integrator and as a telco products manufacturer. It's present in nearly all the continents around the world, mainly in 13 countries, with 100 plus active customers worldwide. Italtel counts around 1,300 employees, of which 1,100 are in Italy and 200 worldwide. It's heavily R&D oriented, with the research labs present in mainly in Milan. Well, 4 of the top 8 worldwide communication service providers are served by Italtel, as well as most of the European incumbent communication service providers. So as well in Latin America and obviously in Italy with the main operators and the most important enterprises. So as said before, Italtel acts as a system integrator and as a telco products manufacturer. Obviously, network transformation lies in the system integration departments, especially in the advanced professional services portfolio recently entered in Italtel. Recently, I'm talking about 10 years ago. So getting into the presentation, talking what is the value of Italtel in providing, in leading and the network transformation project. Well, first of all, it's the end-to-end accountability, which Italtel can provide a turnkey solution to its customers. So starting from the governance to also from the business case, technical consultancy, IT consultancy, and the leadership on the operations. Up till now, all the projects led by Italtel were actually co-led with the operator itself. So a task force was created with the operator, and a team, a front office of Italtel was located at the operator side with the back office, the support of the back office in Italy or in Rome. But the question is why operators should move towards a network, should move to transform their network. Well, basically in the recent years, as shown before, the operators suffered less revenues per user and increasing OPEX due to aging network, to aging employees, to the complexity of IT systems, to a multiplicity of IT systems, and so on. So they had to innovate their networks. So this is why they moved towards a consolidation of their transport, voice, and data networks to migrate and converge towards an IP consolidated network. Thus, in front of some CapEx investment, because obviously you need some investments to deploy the new network, you had all the reduced OPEX due to the introduction of the new network. So you have less maintenance and spare parts management, less operations. Power consumption is a very important factor. And monetization, obviously, of the central offices, getting rid of the obsolete technologies. All those reasons led to the operators to go towards a network consolidation or network transformation. Getting into network transformation, basically, it has to do with switching out phasing, then the building out phasing, and all the underlying data and transport network. This cannot be done without the adaptation of transport network, the validation of the new NGN or the network based on the soft switch, and the operation systems adaptation. So it's actually a circle of different activities and different projects which lead to the decommissioning program as structured and visioned by Italtel. So once again, decommissioning or transformation is seen as a partnership between Italtel and the operator, with the end-to-end responsibility and accountability on the different stages borne by Italtel. So how Italtel outlines the program of the transformation, it's basically 2 simple stages, continuous iteration between a pre-rollout stage and a rollout stage. What does that mean? It means that first of all, the pre-rollout takes place, then where planning and assessment, as we will see later on. Then rollout, where operations really take place, and in the meanwhile, reporting, continuous reporting and improvement take place. So getting more into details on this. In the pre-rollout stage, you will have Italtel getting to work with the operator, doing a due diligence and the assessment of the existing network and of the target network. Processes and procedures are then defined with the operator. IT development and tooling, this is a very much important topic which Italtel takes care of, which is the automation and the repair, detection and repair of the data quality, the effort estimation and the governance, and then the master plan of the migration of the customers towards the new generation or the network based on a source switch. All those activities are then built up in the pre-rollout, tested, and then we move to the rollout stage, where the governance defined previously is then implemented, put in place. Then data quality, the quality of the consistency of the data bases involved in the migration in the old and in the new network is checked, and repair takes place. Then the execution of the migration takes place, logical and physical migration. Then the decommissioning and the power off of the old switches. And above all, at the end of the rollout, you have evaluation and learning in order to get back, to feed them back to the pre-rollout to see if anything can be optimized, automized, or improved. All those two stages are supported by continuous reporting. So you have different levels of reporting from the executive level to the operational technical levels. This reflects nothing else but a standardized life cycle approach. And it's performed usually by front office customized, which is located at the operator's premises in the different areas of the operator, and supported by the capabilities and the resources of Italtel in the back office in Italy or in the country where this transformation takes place. Well, up till now, Italtel has conducted to success different projects worldwide. Basically, we are talking about in Asia and in Europe. Some of those projects are already finished. Others are still taking place. So basically, in Europe, projects are still taking place. In Asia, they are finished. All in all, around 5 million PSTN lines were migrated from legacy network to NGN or IMS networks, and around 250,000 ISDN lines migrated towards the IMS or towards access gateways. Italtel obviously doesn't deal with only the technologies of Italtel. We built up in the last 10 years experience with different telecommunication equipment manufacturers, the major ones in worldwide. So we dealt with networks from Huawei, both access and core, in Siemens, legacy networks, Alcatel-Lucent, Lucent switches, Ericsson, and in some cases also Italtel switches themselves. So as you can see, it's product agnostic. What counts in this case is the methodology and the learning curve of Italtel, which is quite fast. Throughout the projects conducted by Italtel, we faced many challenges, but the biggest one was related to the integrity and of the data, actually the data quality of the customer profiles, customer services, and so on, to be moved to the new network. This has been, I think the biggest challenge we've met in all the projects, and it was a recurrent problem which all operators have. For this sake, Italtel developed its own tools within the IT department of Italtel, performing some preventive checks and creating some proprietary rules to overcome the problems faced by the data quality. Some migrations were not standard. So as long as you have a PSTN migration, this is quite normal business. But in some cases, we might face some special cases like lines which cannot be migrated in a transparent way. So you need to invent or find out an alternative way to perform the migration. For instance, commercial migrations are an example. Those are migrations where you have to contact the customer and offer a new contract, for instance, and this has been overcame in a couple of projects by setting up a call center which had the function also to of marketing to the operator. Time pressure, well, this is recurrent in any project, not only for transformation, and this was overcame by clear processes, learning, and continuous learning, actually. Complexity, well, strong governance, simplifying problems, getting sometimes, well, it was necessary to break down the activities and micromanage them. But this increased also the know-how and the capabilities of Italtel throughout all the different projects. First-time syndrome, well, that was the related to the first projects we faced in the migration, and it was at the beginning we didn't have the enough self-confidence to face this project because it was quite new for us. So we dealt with it with strong micromanagement approach, but then with the advance of other projects, things became normal business and not a problem anymore. Heterogeneous networks, as we have seen before, Italtel has the experience of dealing with different providers or manufacturers worldwide, and this will increase the know-how of Italtel and the expertise, the capabilities, and permitted us to develop our own tools and our own approach to perform the transformation. So, as a result of all of this, the efficacy of the migration increased with every new project, and the success rate of seamless migration and first time right is around 99.5%. So 0.5% only of failures in the migrations, and in some cases, in some projects, it's even less. So it started as an exercise some years ago for Italtel, which was a telecommunication equipment manufacturer, and now became the habit and normal business for Italtel. All right. Thank you.
All right, lovely. Thank you for that presentation. What I'll say is just a reminder for the audience, we're about to go into the questions and answers session soon. So in order to ask your questions, you can send them in via the questions widget. Just type them into that box at the top left-hand corner of your screen and then hit submit. So let's get started with that if everyone's ready. And we're going to go ahead and ask one question here. Has Italtel developed some recent decommissioning projects for network and service providers? Could you give us some examples of critical issues addressed and resolved?
Sure. So, well, the most critical issues we faced in one of our recent projects was related to data integrity. Actually, we had to move the subscribers, PSTN mainly subscribers, from a legacy network towards an IMS network through access gateways. And the data entries in the different databases concerning the profile of the customer, so talking about the network level and the mediation level, were quite different. So taking them as without intervening meant creating dysfunctions and failures all over. So this challenge, we overcame this challenge by developing some dedicated tools to do some preventive data analysis, data check, and data correction, and then to move safely the customers towards the IMS network. Another recent decommissioning project, which is still going on, well, also related to some cases where, some special cases where technical migration, transparent migration was not possible. So any intervention on the network would have impacted the customers directly. So what we did is just to set up a call center, a dedicated call center, and to contact the customer proposing new contracts instead of doing some technical migration. So yeah, issues are recurrent, but with every project, the expertise is increasing.
Lovely. Thank you for that answer. And just a very quick reminder again to the audience, if you'd like to ask a question, go ahead and type it into that box at the top left-hand corner of your screen, and then click Submit. So next question here is, as Brian said, conversion processes are detailed, time-consuming, and complex. Why should I choose Italtel?
Well, I would choose Italtel. Well, if I say that, I would choose Italtel because of the first of all expertise built up in the last years, know-how on telecommunications in general and IT world, and heterogeneous experience on different providers for now. And above all, the methodology and the simple approach with which Italtel approaches the conversion projects.
Lovely, thank you. Next question is, ISDN services are difficult to migrate. What kind of solutions did you use?
Yeah, indeed, that's a good question. Well, ISDN, well, for basic access, in some cases, it was chosen to leave them on some legacy switches, which were kept there alive for some years. So they were gathered there. In other cases, they were migrated to residential access gateways, so directly to IAD solutions. In some cases were virtualized over IP, and other cases were actually commercial migrations where the customer is contacted and 2 PSTN lines were offered where ISDN was not needed. For the PRAs, the most common approach adopted up till now is the migration towards media gateways.
And this is Brian. If I may just cut in quickly and say that it is a very good question, because in our experience as well, from the operators with which we've spoken, they have mentioned that ISDN services have been a major challenge for them. And in fact, as Amer has said, they have taken exactly those measures, in some cases leaving them alone, moving them to other existing switches to consolidate them, if not convert, or use integrated access devices in other cases where they were able to do that.
Yeah, well, indeed. And those ISDN lines left on some dedicated legacy switches are then destined to decline with time, actually. So, but one of the most common solutions, indeed, as Brian was saying, is the integrated access devices was quite common. Yeah, it's quite expensive, but it's quite common.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question is, in the time of decreasing revenue and growing legacy systems costs, what OPEX reduction measures did you take?
Well, Brian, I'll take this question. It's okay with you?
Oh, please. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, well, basically, in the time being, legacy networks are aged actually, and the copper network has its age, and so intervention on this were increasing in the recent years with some operators. With other operators, the OPEX measures were related to power consumption and the geographical distribution of the different switches various switches. So it depends on the customer itself or on the operator itself. But mainly it's the aging network and the power consumption where the parameters we wanted to reduce. Brian, you have something to add on top?
No, it's essentially just going back to the thought again of that the existing TDM network, if it is left alone, has a certain set sunk cost, and it just those sunk costs have to be decreased to keep operators viable over time as the wireline network continues to decrease the number of lines that it serves. So really, from what we've seen, the reason so many operators are looking to commit to all IP is because there are no alternatives. It has to be done in order to keep the operations viable in the long term.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next question I have here is how can I get a copy of the presentation? And I think I can take this one and say that it will be available in the on-demand version of the webinar, and you'll be sent details of how you can access that by email. Okay, so next question here. Could you be more specific in the business case and tell us, in your experience, how much a network and service provider is able to save in terms of OPEX on a percentual basis?
Well, it depends on the network topology of the operator, and on the distribution of the network around the country and the coverage of the copper network, for instance, and the technology used. But you can estimate the OPEX reduction between 40 to 60% actually. But don't forget that you have the CapEx investment at the beginning. So yes, you have a sensible CapEx reduction, OPEX reduction, sorry.
All right, thank you very much. And I think we're all just out of time there. So what I'll say is to anyone who asked a question who we didn't get around to answering, they will be forwarded on to the sponsors, and then you'll receive a response from them soon, hopefully. So that just leaves me to thank Brian and Amer for what was a great presentation. And of course to thank Italtel and Current Analysis for sponsoring this session. To all the attendees, you will receive an email shortly, as I said, telling you how you can access the on-demand version of the webinar. And you can actually access this through our website as well. And that website for you is www.business-review-webinar.com. And once this webinar ends, today's survey will appear in its place, and we would very much appreciate it if you could answer the questions in there for feedback. We look forward to sharing further webinars with you, so please do keep an eye out on the website just mentioned. And follow us on Twitter, why not? That's @BRWebinars for daily updates. And also join our LinkedIn group, Business Review Webinars. To the speakers, is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we end?
On my side, I'd just like to say again, thank you everyone for your time and attention. Some very exciting times in figuring out how to transform the business, being a network operator, and to attack the many different fronts in which there are opportunities both to take money out of the business, to streamline operations, and to become a more efficient operator.
Thank you, Brian. I would like to thank you everyone for participating, and please don't hesitate to contact me for any further question on my email address indicated in the slides, and I'll be more than happy to discuss and give some more insights with you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you once again, and I hope you all have a lovely day.
Thank you.